One everything kicks off in Everstein with a notoriously loudmouthed old man. He was an amateur who only knew a single one-star spell, but his boasting was so extreme that he called himself an archmage. To make matters worse, his temper was so nasty that he routinely picked fights with neighborhood kids, but by some crazy twist of fate, young Derek ended up studying under this grumpy old fraud. There was no heroic destiny here. The old man just wanted an assistant, and the kid desperately needed knowledge. But as the lessons went on, the boy actually began mastering the flow of mana. Right before his teacher's eyes, he formed an arrow of pure energy and absolutely stunned the old man. From there, it took him only 1 year to reach the one-star rank. Still, the old man lectured him about nobility, hitting the 3-star rank before they even grow up. He warned that a commoner of cheap blood would inevitably shatter against the massive second-star wall. To him, bloodline was everything, period. Yes, everything. He constantly ranted about the completely impossible class divide, nobles and commoners, but young Derek just saw a pathetic man projecting his own failures. Then came one exceptionally long night. When Derek finally returned home the next day, he found the old man lying dead on the cold floor. His entire body was purple with brutal bruises, looking thoroughly beaten. Derek initially figured the man just picked a bad fight somewhere, but the incredibly ugly truth finally came out later. The palace guards had beaten him to death for trying to steal a rare 2-star magic tome from the storehouse. No one could fathom why a worthless old man would suddenly take such a desperate risk. He had always preached about noble blood, but Derek literally could not be a noble because he was reincarnated from an entirely different world. 4 years later, a woman named Keisha Flameheart crossed his path. She was once the lady of a fallen noble house and a powerful 3-star mage. Naturally, every mercenary outfit wanted her. While taking local jobs in Everstein, she started mentoring Derek, who was still working as a low-level sellsword, hiding his 1-star magic. One afternoon, she quietly tells him that his talent could carry him far, but uncontrolled greed would only stall his growth. After he promises to remember that advice, she tells him to close his eyes and focus on his mana. Under her watchful gaze, he concentrates deeply. Keisha immediately senses that his internal energy is massive and incredibly steady, but the moment he opens his eyes, the surging magic triggers a series of deafening explosions. As the entire camp starts panicking, Keisha grabs his arm and drags him away. The nearby adventurers scramble to find the cause, but she quickly slips into a quiet alley, leaving Derek absolutely baffled. She warns him that the high and mighty nobility are fiercely protective of their power, and magic is their ultimate status symbol. Born talent is only celebrated if you belong to their elite inner circle. It is practically unheard of for a commoner to reach the 3-star tier, even after spending an entire lifetime studying. Then she reveals what he just unleashed was a 2-star illusion spell. Just like that, Derek has reached the 2-star level at 14. For the next year, Keisha continues mentoring him, sharing advanced techniques, and teaching him the ways of high society, but their journey together ends when an imperial count suddenly summons her away to hire her as a private tutor. The offer came from the Margrave of Elvester, a powerful noble family even the Grand Duke of the capital could not ignore. Keisha simply could not refuse, since teaching magic to such high-caliber nobility is a dream. Before departing, she leaves a 2-star magic book for Derek as a parting gift. He uses the book to unlock a whole bunch of powerful new skills right away. Through pure self-study, the 16-year-old masters several spells, wanting even more. His boss soon brings news of a request sent by the House of Deplanes. Derek immediately gets suspicious. Why would a massive noble house reach out to them? But the greedy boss does not care. The Deplanes family throws gold around like water. This job is their ticket to making connections with some incredibly powerful nobles. When Derek asks what they actually want, the boss shrugs it off. They just need to clear out a few monsters wandering around the Grand Duchy. Derek senses something is pretty off and tries to pass the job to others. As his boss keeps pushing, Derek firmly reminds him that he avoids shady business. The boss complains that mages are incredibly hard to find among mercenaries these days. Still, Derek remains completely resolute in his refusal. That is until his boss pulls out a gold coin as a down payment. Let's be real, money talks, and Derek is soon standing before his new clients. He stands before three shady figures, while a stiff butler stares him down. The old man scoffs, complaining that they are sending a mere child for this. His boss insists Derek is highly capable, but the stubborn butler will not hear it. Then the maid whispers to him, and they both glance at a nearby hooded girl. They finally take him seriously, heading out immediately. Out in Duplain, Derek slices through goblins with absolute ease, looking totally annoyed. He glares at the pests, finishing them with lightning magic. He calmly tells the dispatch officer the job is finished. The clients stare in complete shock, amazed he cleared them out so incredibly fast. Later at the inn, a mercenary named Pauline lectures Derek for serving nobles. The boss tries to calm her down by bringing up the massive payout. She snaps that no amount of money is worth throwing away their mercenary pride. Crawling for nobles is beneath them. She assumes they only made one measly silver. But when the boss mentions a whole gold coin, her eyes instantly light up. Suddenly, she is more than willing to crawl for anyone who pays. The boss frantically yells that crawling on the floor is not part of the job. After Pauline calms down, Derek mentions that the actual hunt felt pretty basic. While the boss only focuses on the coin, Derek points out a major issue. He realized all three of their clients were actually lying about who they were. A real dispatch officer is supposed to show energy, endurance, and decent social skills. Their client had none of those, and the supposed maid had incredibly smooth hands. As Derek begins to question the third companion, the boss interrupts him. He reminds the young mage that they are just hired mercenaries. They have absolutely no reason to go digging around their client's business. Derek agrees. In this harsh world, survival and making a living come first. The next morning, Derek finishes his work, securing the area from further attacks. The pleased client happily hands over 2 gold coins for a job well done. The massive pile of coins gets Fratson so hyped he starts ruffling young Derek's hair. But the stiff old client cuts the celebration short with a cough, offering Derek a new job. Both mercenaries stare in absolute shock when the old man offers 15 gold coins. When the client asks again for a final answer, the young mercenary agrees to do the deed. Before long, the two mercenaries finally arrive at the Grand Duplain mansion. He gets pretty comfortable with their old client, chatting him up like an old friend. That comfort vanishes when the old man introduces himself as Delon, chief manager of the Grand Duke. Our guys are still trying to process that bombshell when Katrina, the head maid, appears. She greets them with perfect poise, leaving the mercenaries completely out of their depth. Fratson scrambles to introduce himself while Derek simply nods, quietly storing every detail in his mind. Right then, they watch a young lady step down from the carriage, drawing everyone's eyes. She pulls back her hood, causing Derek to catch his breath. She introduces herself as Iceland. Her request is simple: become the private magic tutor for her younger sister, Diella. The kid is totally floored, hired to teach magic to a high-ranking noble lady. Meanwhile, inside the Duplain estate, Rieg storms straight into the Grand Duke's study. He is a walking tornado, immediately throwing shade at Diella. Apparently, she has been abusing the servants, and the Duke tries to quiet him down. But Rieg is on an absolute tear, screaming louder than a broken horn. Valerius, the level-headed older brother, steps in and tells Rieg to pipe down. But the kid's anger is too hot, he keeps shouting loudly. He demands their father stop her immediately. Valerius is absolutely done. Fed up with the drama, he orders Rieg to get out, but the boy ignores him. He snaps that Diella is hopeless, insisting they focus on Iceland and just cut the younger one loose. The Duke finally speaks up, coldly reminding his son who actually makes the decisions here. But Rieg remains incredibly stubborn, pushing his luck to the absolute limit. He even suggests locking their youngest sibling away in some distant monastery. The Duke, completely exhausted by this insolence, buries his face in his hands. He slams his fist down, fiercely teaching Rieg exactly who holds the real authority in this house. Yet the boy refuses to back down, warning his father a tough choice is coming. Talk about extreme sibling rivalry. Meanwhile, Iceland and Derek walk through the grand halls. She looks quite sad, quietly asking the young mage if he has ever heard of her sister. Derek honestly admits she is just an obscure name on the family lineage to him. That honest answer clearly disappoints her, bringing a heavy shadow over her face. It turns out Diella is the family disgrace they try hard to hide. Suddenly they cross paths with Valerius and Rieg. The atmosphere immediately turns tense. Valerius and Iceland exchange cold, highly formal greetings, but the brother quickly excuses himself. He needs to tend to Rieg, who seems slightly injured from his earlier outburst. Derek stays completely silent, closely observing the brothers and a weeping maid nearby. It is like watching a highly dramatic family play unfold in real time. Inside the Duke's office, Iceland proudly presents Derek as the new magic tutor. But the Duke looks utterly bored, barely giving the young man a passing glance. When Iceland prepares to leave the room, the Duke unexpectedly orders Derek to remain. Once they are left entirely alone, the powerful noble slowly sizes up the youth. He points out how incredibly young Derek is, questioning his actual magical capabilities. Derek confidently claims he can use high-level magic, but the Duke is not impressed. The Duke laughs and tells him to drop the act. Humility is not always a virtue. Especially around a fifth circle mage, Derek quickly apologizes for trying to act too cool. Modesty will not work here, the Duke slowly eyes him up. Derek does not exactly look or dress like a typical magic tutor, so he confesses. He reveals he is actually a mercenary. The Duke accepts it because Isaline made the choice. Access is granted to Diela's villa, but Derek has a straightforward style. As a mercenary, he only cares about finishing the exact job he is paid to do. His current contract is to teach Diela magic and help her climb the high society ladder. The Duke thinks he is just stating the obvious, but Derek insists there is more. First, he has a massive favor to ask. Meanwhile, a maid barely dodges a flying plate. A bratty kid threw it, easily acting like the most annoying person around. The poor maid apologizes in terror, but the little monster just doubles down on her. She screams and threatens to send even more heavy dinner plates flying at her. This makes the poor maid shake like a leaf, knowing those threats are real. Back at the estate, a man questions why Isaline chose Derek. They have plenty of top-tier magic teachers waiting in line already. But Isaline explains they already tried every famous instructor on the whole continent. Every single one of them failed miserably, so she had to get a little creative. Besides, even though Derek is a mercenary, he actually knows how to behave like nobility. A bit shocking, isn't it? The man notes Derek was raised by a fallen noble. His graceful manners make sense now, but then comes the real truth. Derek is a kid who has been fighting as a mercenary since his early childhood. Forget about grace and kindness, this guy survived on raw grit and street smarts. Soon, the butler and maid escort Derek straight to Diela's room where he knocks. With no answer, he simply walks right in and introduces himself to the girl. Diela, acting incredibly spoiled, orders him to step closer. The moment he does, she strikes. She throws a bowl of dirty dishwater right into his face without warning. Calling him a filthy sewer rat, she claims he does not deserve to teach her. Then she climbs onto a chair to pour even more gutter water over his head. All just to remind him of his place. Derek stays quiet, which only makes her smugger. Kicking him like a punching bag, she screams at him for even looking at her. Next, she hurls her shoe directly at him and starts lecturing him about the hierarchy. It is a massive power play meant to show him exactly who is in charge. Meanwhile, we cut back to the Duke, who is sitting in deep, heavy thought. Thinking deeply over Derek's words, the Duke knows his daughter is a massive handful. Derek had asked the doting father exactly how much power he was willing to give. Just how much authority would the Duke hand over to fix this wild child? Armed with that absolute power, Derek finally snaps and slaps Diela hard across the face. The sudden strike completely terrifies her. Nobody has ever dared to touch her like this. Coldly, he orders her to stand up. We flash back to 3 years ago. Back then, Derek asked Katrina how to handle an incredibly disobedient and hateful student. Her answer was highly idealistic, to simply try to understand and nurture them. Derek immediately pointed out that this kind of soft approach was far too naive. What should they do if a student was entirely beyond any form of kindness? If patience and tolerance completely fail, a harsher hand is required. A new starting point has to be found. Her ultimate method is simple to imprint absolute fear into her students. Diela is still reeling from the blow, but Derek demands she treat others with real respect and consideration, but she fights back and tries to scream at him again, but it only gets her slapped again. He warns her that he hates repeating himself, demanding she treat people with respect. Finally, Diela remembers she is a noble lady with an entire staff, screaming for her butler that Derek is hitting her. The butler and the maids charge inside to rescue their spoiled brat of a lady. But Derek simply reveals a document showing the Grand Duke has given him absolute authority over Diella's education. Both the butler and the girl are completely stunned by this revelation. Later that night, Rogue tries to calm his older brother, but Valerius storms right into Derek's room to avenge his little sister. Derek calmly states that his actions were fully authorized by the Grand Duke. Rogue also reminds Valerius that Derek is Esselin's guest, and they are ruining her reputation by mistreating him. Hearing this, Valerius calms down little and asks Derek to follow him. Meanwhile, Rogue tries to smooth things over, agreeing that Diella seriously needs a harsh lesson to finally wake up. Derek just nods and walks away, leaving Rogue wondering why they tolerate such a hopeless brat. Valerius then leads Derek into the bedroom that once belonged to Diella when she still lived in the main estate, there and unfinished. Canvas catches Derek's eye, prompting Valerius to explain that his sister used to love painting, yet she never completed a single piece because she only painted the parts she actually liked. Valerius then apologizes for his earlier anger, but Derek brushes it off, asking why he was brought here. Valerius explains that he wanted to prove Diella was not always a hateful child who deserved this constant punishment, but somewhere along the line she became obsessed with her noble status. Ultimately, she was banished from the main family estate and locked away in a separate villa. Valerius wants to save her from a grim life at the convent, believing he can convince their father if she can master just one single one-star spell. He begs Derek for help, and the boy notes that she has not given up on magic entirely, pointing to the scribbled notes left in her textbooks. He also spots guides on the doctrine of discipline scattered around. Taking in all these silent clues, Derek decides to give it a shot. The next morning, Diella is sleeping peacefully when Derek pours an icy bucket of water right over her head. Before she can even protest, he drags her out of bed while she screams and thrashes. Once they are far enough from the estate, Derek throws her onto the hard ground. Diella immediately starts shrieking about a commoner daring to touch her, and here's where he completely drops the mask. He has zero intention of teaching her magic, because what he really loves is humbling proud and mighty nobles. Hearing this, Diella freezes in pure terror, but Derek continues to explain that a gutter rat like him has zero reason to love arrogant nobles. This teaching gig is just a perfect excuse to break arrogant, insufferably proud nobles like her. He slowly draws his blade, admitting that nothing satisfies him more than the beautiful screams of the highborn. She screams he won't get away with this, but Derek coldly reminds her she is headed to a remote convent soon, where absolutely nobody would believe a single word she says anyway. And if a fatal accident were to happen, he would simply offer his own life as an apology, and that would be that. Besides, if he just runs away afterward, everyone will move on quickly. He would have freed House to Plains from its absolute biggest headache. As the terrifying reality of her own death finally sinks in, Diella bolts. Crossing the open field to the mansion makes her an easy target. She needs the forest. If she stays out in the open, he will catch her instantly. Losing him in the trees is her only shot. Knowing these woods inside out, she plans to shake Derek off and double back. But all her desperate planning for an escape instantly grinds to a sudden halt. Derek is summoning a fireball. It is a shock, because a two-star spell like that should be completely impossible for a commoner. He just smirks and hurls the blazing sphere right at her. She throws herself aside just in time. Flames explode around her. She shivers as Derek quietly steps out of the smoke and casually murmurs that he missed this time. Diella scrambles back up but trips hard, hitting the dirt. There is zero time to recover. His magic shifts, firing sharp mana arrows directly at her. She rolls frantically, barely dodging the glowing projectiles. Derek notes that she moves surprisingly well for someone who spent her life shut away. She ignores him, running again, but Derek does not even give chase. Diella is completely exhausted now, her chest burning. She cannot keep this up. Knowing she is about to get caught, she tries one last gamble. Meanwhile, Derek sends out a pulse of mana, sensing the surrounding woods. This forest is a perfect match for her painting. She actually sensed the flow of mana in this wild place without even knowing it, capturing it on canvas. But before he can fully process what this means, she strikes. Diella lunges, throwing a stone. Derek draws his blade in a flash and bats it away effortlessly. Even so, he has to admire her stubborn spirit. As she gasps for air, Derek points his sword at her chest. No more running. Any last words, he asks. She just sneers, refusing to beg like a commoner. Why are you so obsessed with your bloodline, he asks. She snaps back, furious. Without her noble blood, she is absolutely nothing. She has nothing else. Everyone pressured her to learn magic, assuming she never even tried. But if she fails at magic and painting, her title is her only shield left. She is completely breaking down here, but Derek remains utterly cold. He raises his blade, offering a quiet farewell after her desperate confession. He swings, Diella squeezes her eyes shut, but the fatal blow never lands. His metal blade is frozen solid. Talk about an icy awakening. Diella stares in absolute disbelief. Derek simply smiles and offers his congratulations. He apologizes for his earlier rudeness, but immediately throws some serious shade. This is just raw mana, he says, hardly real magic yet. Still, Diella starts sobbing as if she was not just terrorizing everyone. As Derek patches her wounds, he explains her true nature. She belongs to the wild school of magic, not the disciplined path. Standard noble training failed her because she tried to study strict theories. It was like forcing her body into clothes that never fit. As she listens closely, Derek tells her the truth. Watching her paint, he notices how she senses the mana drifting through the air. She captures the wild energy on her canvas. Usually, mages born with this specific. Wild affinity can feel natural mana from childhood, once her bandaging is finished. She can walk again. Derek leads the way back, talking casual business while he explains things. Naturally, she mumbles a prickly thanks with her head turned. He feels a bit awkward, picking up his pace and shifting the talk to her. Paintings. The next morning, Diella tries using her magic but fails completely. Frustrated, she stomps out and startles a maid carrying a heavy water bucket. Water splashes everywhere, soaking her dress and leaving the servant frozen in terror. A single glare has the maid begging for her life. Instead, Diella just tells her to be careful. The maid is stunned. No yelling, no hitting. The other servants whisper as they help her up, wondering what happened to their young lady overnight. Meanwhile, Derek is napping peacefully when the brat starts pounding on his door. He cracks it open only to face her loud demands. She wants to control her newly awakened mana. The butler gasps, completely shocked. By the news, Diella ignores him, pushing past to demand her lesson right. Now, Derek simply slams the door in her face, telling her to return this afternoon. She snaps, pounding on the wood like her very life depends on it. Inside, Derek just treats her screaming like a lullaby and drifts back to sleep. Soon, rumors of her strange kindness and her newly awakened mana spread through the grand estate like wildfire. Honestly, it was only a matter of time before Reg found out. The gossip quickly reaches the Grand Duke via the two brothers, who already grilled the servants about the rumors. The Grand Duke feels immense relief, but Reg urges his father to stay cautious. Since this is only the first step, Valerius defends her, scolding his brother for being so harsh, but Reg counters that she was a literal tyrant until yesterday. It is way too early to cancel her exile based on a single minor miracle. Their father listens silently, choosing to stay out of the debate. Later, Diella sits sulking. When Derek points it out, she insists she is merely furious. He warns her that anger will not solve her problems, but she folds her arms, stubborn. When he mentions that her pout won't help, she immediately snaps, but one icy glare from the tutor quickly silences her. Forcing her to admit she is pouting, Derek explains that rushing her training will only burn her out, making rest just as crucial as studying. Now that she is recovered, it is time to actually begin her lessons. She grumbles, calling him a boring teacher. Derek merely smiles and asks if she would prefer his more intense, hands-on methods. Instantly, she remembers his terrifying training and sits down quietly. Derek begins by explaining that she can easily master one-star magic in no time, especially once she learns proper control. This is because her wild magic path does not rely on rigid rules. It suits her perfectly. She is free-spirited, and thanks to her noble Duplain blood, she possesses an abundance of raw talent. She blushes deeply at his praise. Giddily wondering if she might be a true genius, Derek immediately crushes that dream, sparking another round of arguing. Nearby, Reg overhears them talking and glares, looking personally offended by their very existence. One day, Diella barges into Derek's room to demand answers about magic. She stalks him while he eats in the hallways and even out in the open yards. She pesters him even when he tries to read, classic brat behavior right there. She scolds him for taking library books to study, but he quickly sets her straight. He explains that the Grand Duke gave him permission, but she would not be herself if she actually listened, so she drags him away to tutor her. Valerius is already waiting when they arrive. Once they sit, he asks about her progress. Derek explains that she still needs quite a bit of time to master basic magic. Valerius drops a warning: his mother is returning in exactly 1 week. He warns that she is pretty difficult to please, especially since she despises commoners. Derek nods, understanding completely, then asks if there is another reason for this meeting. Valerius turns incredibly serious, taking a very dramatic deep breath. He declares his duty as the future head of House Duplain. He must treat everyone equally, but the human heart is a complex thing. Derek watches this dramatic performance, failing to see the actual point. Finally, Valerius reveals his deep sorrow: Diella has stopped playing with him. Derek wants to turn to stone while watching this absolute siskin put on a show. He begs Derek for help, complaining that she only follows the tutor around now. When Derek stays silent, Valerius pulls out a handmade doll for his sister. Derek stares at the creepy toy, wondering if it is actually cursed. Valerius bursts into tears, sobbing that Derek has absolutely zero appreciation for art. Eventually, the Grand Duchess returns home and actually praises Derek for his hard work. She even offers to send a grand gift directly to his family estate. But when Derek politely reveals that he does not actually own any estate, because he is just a commoner, her face completely freezes in pure shock. She looks utterly horrified, like she saw a ghost. 1 week earlier, Iceland told Derek that bringing him to the estate was indeed the best choice she made. She wanted to stay, but urgent business in Abelstein forced her to leave. Derek promised to watch over Diella, but she found his reply pretty lifeless. They said their goodbyes in their usual unique ways and parted paths. Only after leaving did Iceland realize she forgot to mention her mother's return. She forgot to warn Derek ahead of time, leaving the boss quite confused. Iceland explains that the Grand Duchess is basically a force of nature. Sure enough, the fierce woman storms into the Duke's private office. She demands to know why a commoner is tutoring their precious daughter. The Duke calmly notes that his ears work fine, so she can quiet down. But she remains absolutely stubborn when it comes to her baby girl. He explains that he dislikes hiring commoners too, but there is a catch. Every single noble teacher already quit on their incredibly bratty daughter. Finding a good magic tutor is hard, and Iceland highly recommended Derek. Still, she worries about status and demands they bring in Flam. The Duke is completely shocked. She wants to reassign the outer defense commander to be a simple tutor. However, the narrow-minded woman refuses to back down. She argues that high society is a brutal battlefield. A teacher is a status symbol, so she refuses to let Diella learn from a commoner. Tutor and become an absolute laughingstock at her debut. That's when Valerius enters. To calm his mother, she refuses to let this slide. Then Rake steps in, pointing out that the absolute core of the problem is simply to see if some commoner mage is actually qualified to tutor Diella. Hearing this, the Duchess feels relieved since Rake seems to agree with her. Having a commoner teach a noble magic is highly unusual after all. So he asks the Duke for permission to test Derek in a magic duel, but the Duke cuts him off. There is no need. Derek is a true prodigy. Rake is incredibly displeased and suggests they test Diella. Instead, Valerius is baffled, but Rake explains that she should have achieved spectacular results under Derek's guidance if he is truly such a brilliant teacher now. Valerius follows Rake to confront him about challenging their sister, but Rake asks if Valerius honestly believes she has turned over a new leaf after committing so many awful sins. Valerius still wants to protect her, but Rake snaps back. He warns that their sister will drag the family to absolute ruin. Valerius questions his harsh view, but Rake fiercely insists that Diella cross the line first, meaning she deserves to rot away in the detached villa. Talk about a toxic household. The next morning, Diella barges right into Derek's quarters as usual, and his reaction is just as dry, but she throws a scroll right at him, declaring that he is fired if she loses the upcoming magic duel. It turns out Derek already knows about it, warning her that Reg is a seasoned one-star combat mage. Naturally, Diella snaps and threatens to fire him on the spot, but Derek calmly replies, he is a simple mercenary here to finish his contract and get paid. And he has already collected plenty of gold. Diella is completely stunned by how cold-blooded her tutor is. 1 week later, the crowd gathers at the arena, including the family's most powerful elites. Derek calmly offers his greetings to the Duke, who notices zero fear in the young man, wondering where this confidence comes from. Such composure only confirms that Derek is not someone to be taken lightly. Soon, Reg steps out like a final boss. To him, this is no ordinary duel. He wants to absolutely crush Diella and force her to regret her past behavior. Meanwhile, Diella enters the combat arena dressed in a bright red hooded outfit. She remembers worrying that Derek did not care about her, but he had reassured her that her mana growth was already on track, meaning she could easily cast first-star magic soon. Besides, she carries the elite Duplain bloodline, and his wild school focuses on intense self-study rather than direct lecturing. Teaching, Diella did not really grasp those pointers and openly admitted that she is a pretty terrible student. Still, she wanted to keep learning from him. Derek paused, then admitted he knows absolutely nothing about noble duel etiquette or rules, but he does know how to win, and asked if she wanted victory. Diella remembered every single person who ever laughed at her for having zero mana, the teachers who quit on her and her own tantrums. While her siblings received praise for their talent, she was only pitied as the family disappointment. She absolutely wanted to win. Diella did not show up today as Reg's weak sister, nor as the helpless daughter of House Duplain. Duplain stands tall, present purely as Derek's student and a skilled mage in her own right. The siblings face off. The butler steps up to announce the rules. The clash begins. Derek breaks down the trick, explaining how that special magic circle accessory protects the wearer. It blocks fatal magic right before impact, but damn, it is expensive. These nobles love burning cash on petty squabbles. Rog starts chanting. A green aura flares. He is dead serious about this fight. He wants Diella locked back in that detached villa. His wind magic charges forward. Diella just runs. She bolts to dodge, leaving Rog completely irritated. Furious, he attacks again. She is just too fast for him. Sure, Rog handles basic magic well, but combat, he is a complete novice. He is burning massive amounts of mana just trying to force a hit. Diella blocks with an ice wall. Still, Rog is unimpressed. Rog laughs. She is only using raw mana, not even a proper ranked spell. But as he plans to crush her, Diella remembers Derek's words. Mercenaries do not fight like noble softies. They do not care about playing fair. Honor is useless. The only thing that actually matters on the field is winning. Sure, people might call her dirty. Who cares? Winning is everything. They can complain about her lack of honor later, as long as she secures the victory. She wants that win. She fully agreed to play by Derek's rules. Focused, she sprints, dodges, and lets her master's voice guide her. Some mercenaries always win, even against enemies who are twice as strong. Those people do not do duels. They fight in real, muddy, bloody wars. It means controlling the field, weaponizing the terrain. Do whatever it takes to survive, even exploiting their tiniest mistakes. With that in mind, Diella raises a giant wall of solid ice. But Rog is fast. He strikes from behind, catching her completely off guard. Derek remains silent. The Duchess panics, acting like she did not start this. She wants to stop the match. Hilarious, considering she pushed for this duel. The Duke stops her. The match is not over yet, he warns. He points out that Diella is fine. Look, her magic circle did not activate. Glancing over, the Duke notices Derek did not blink. Pure calculated ice. This was all planned. Rog steps forward, convinced his wind blade landed. He expects a bloodbath, but he is confused. Why did her circle not trigger? Then he looks down. Diella is literally hiding underneath the entire platform. She retaliates with a blast of icy mana. He dodges, cursing loudly. Leaving the ring is a loss, but the butler quickly shakes his head. Turns out hiding under the stage is completely legal. Absolutely brilliant. Rog is absolutely furious at her cowardice, but there is no time to complain. Sharp icicles keep bursting out of the ground. He cannot even see her. He cannot hit what he cannot see, but she only needs one clean shot. Screaming about her complete lack of noble etiquette, His eyes suddenly lock onto hers. They burn like hot furnaces. She looks calm, unbelievably, terrifyingly calm. It is the exact same look Valerius gave him during their clash. He puts it together. Derek is the mastermind behind this nightmare. A total trap from the beginning. In that exact moment, Rog snaps. She pulls up her cloak and plays along while the anxious Duchess frets. Terrified that Diella stepped into that dusty pit, she begs the Duke to stop the duel. But the Duke actually has some common sense, pointing out she didn't break any rules. Down below, Diella hides to closely watch the flow of mana as Rieg chants his spells. She keeps interrupting him, throwing icicle after icicle. The boy realizes what's happening and leaps up, searching for higher ground. Diella notices the sudden halt in his mana flow. Honestly, she doesn't care, her only goal is striking him. The moment he starts chanting again, even the butler frowns, watching Rieg climb wooden pole. Rieg feels incredibly confident that she can't react to his mana at this range, but chanting spells while hanging up there is no easy task. So Rieg decides to smash the platform without chanting a word. He shapes his mana into a sharp arrow, firing it straight at the pole beneath him. The entire structure collapses into a heap. The Duchess screams in terror, typical behavior for her, but Rieg completely ignores her since his only focus is Diella. He summons another barrage of arrows to finish her off. She tries forming more ice, but fails and has to run for her life. Rieg thinks he has the upper hand up close, but the very next second, Diella charges forward, driving a hard kick right into his chest. As he stumbles back, she grabs a handful of dirt, flings it in his eyes, and escapes. He assumes she is resorting to cheap tricks because she is out of mana, but then the idiot finally realizes his sister is actually here to prove her worth, so he prepares to face her head-on with everything he has. Climbing out of the pit, he meets Diella's sharp, unwavering glare. As blood trickles down her face, she remembers Derek's advice about magic. Mana is the paint and the spell is your brush. She must gather the scattered colors with her brush and paint a masterpiece. That process is magic. Trusting his words, she gathers the swirling mana. Once she feels it at her fingertips, she paints her vision and forms a massive ice spear. The butler and Duchess gasp. She is actually casting first-star magic. But Rieg believes she's just going to cause another disaster. Both prepare their spells. Diella fights for respect, while Rieg is arrogant as always. They unleash their attacks at the exact same moment, clashing hard. In the center, with a massive explosion, the crowd watches in absolute shock as a protection barrier activates. Both Rieg and Diella are panting, exhausted from the clash, waiting for the thick dust to clear. Just a year ago, the Grand Duke walked by her room and saw his deeply depressed daughter sitting in the dark with lifeless eyes. Back to the present, Diella loses her protection barrier triggered while Rieg managed to dodge her final attack. Derek lowers his head in disappointment, but Diella simply breaks down crying. The Duchess immediately complains about the dirty tricks used during the match, but the Duke tunes her out, staring at Diella. It reminds him of his own youth, when everyone praised his fierce ambition. Right now he is just glad that Diella has finally found her spark. Maids rush over to treat her wounds, but she shoves them aside and marches straight toward Rieg. The boy feels incredibly awkward as he tries to offer a compliment, but she simply walks away. She walks straight up to Derek, admitting she lost and apologizing. Derek gently reassures her that everything will be fine if she pushes past this defeat and grows stronger. That completely breaks her floodgates, and she begins sobbing uncontrollably. The Duchess rushes over to console her, begging her to get treated right away. As soon as Diella departs, the Duchess wipes away those fake tears and blames Derek for the entire mess. She even strikes him for teaching dirty tricks. After hitting him again, the bitter woman sneers that he could never comprehend their noble dignity. She expects her husband to back her up, but the Duke slaps her instead to show who is actually being disgraceful. The Duchess stands frozen, shocked she got struck over a mere commoner. But the Duke reminds her that Derek is still their daughters teacher and educators deserve respect. Right then, the Duke asks for Derek's forgiveness, but the boy only glares back and retreats. The Duke orders him to follow him to his office, leaving his wife seething. Inside, the Duke admits Derek earned a massive reward for teaching Diella, offering him a 3-star spell book. Perfect strike right on target. He saw right through Derek, dangling the exact prize the boy wanted. Rare opportunities must be grabbed immediately, so Derek accepts the offer. The Grand Duke notes that a mere first-star level is not enough. To survive in high society, Derek suggests other experts in Duplane can lead her, but the Duke insists Dyla needs a true teacher. He also recognizes Derek's massive ambition despite being a lowly commoner, which is a direct insult to the proud nobles. Derek is unsettled. They have barely spoken, yet this terrifying man already knows he looks beyond three-star magic. The Grand Duke calmly concludes that Derek cannot stay in one place and plans to leave soon. Derek agrees, but the Duke asks him to teach Dyla slightly longer, in exchange for three-star magic, the highest level allowed for commoners. Derek accepts and steps into the library, marveling at the collection. Other mages spend their whole lives desperately hunting for just one two-star spellbook, yet here he is, surrounded by three-star magic. This treasure alone makes staying in this estate completely worth his time. But if Pelin discovers he delayed his departure, she will throw a fit. That is a problem for tomorrow. Meanwhile, Dyla is acting incredibly smug about becoming a first-star mage. Derek lets her have this minor victory. Since she cast it once, Dyla is shocked he is not celebrating her success, so Derek dryly reminds her this is not a real achievement she earned, so why celebrate? He notes she recovered fast over the last 3 days, considering her earlier tears. Dyla quickly denies it, claiming some dust simply got in her eyes. Besides, she thought he was getting fired, but that is ancient history. Derek gets straight to the lesson, noting that since she is progressing so rapidly, they can finally move on to other advanced spells. Dyla immediately beams at the rare praise, eager to absorb everything. Every kind of attack magic she has ever seen, but Derek shut that down instantly, saying she will be practicing basic mana manifestation. Naturally, she pouts at the decision, so Derek explains that solid foundations are crucial. He starts explaining in meticulous detail. She reluctantly agrees to follow his lead, even though she is feeling pretty down about missing those flashy one-star spells. Suddenly, he stares at her, and when she asks what's wrong, he confesses it is actually surprising seeing her behave so obediently. She claims she was always nice, but Derek reminds her of those times she poured dirty water over his head twice. Dyla is shocked he still remembers, letting out a highly robotic, forced laugh. As she pretends to be excited, she is already exhausted to her bones when Derek mentions that she is going to be way busier. He already heard that Dyla will be taking intensive etiquette and general lessons starting next week. Derek thinks this is a great turn of events. She will finally get proper noble schooling. However, Dyla has absolutely no idea why she must learn all this random stuff so suddenly. When she wonders why Azaline is pushing for all of this, Derek reminds her that Azaline is the flower of Duplane, ruling high society. But Dyla only cares about studying magic and starts worrying that she will not have much free time left. Derek is confident he cannot be kicked out now. Still, Dyla warns him about her mother, who is definitely worried that Dyla will lose her noble dignity by studying under commoner. Derek ponders this, realizing that silencing her mother might not actually be difficult, since they only need to completely strip away any excuses she has. The next day, the Grand Duchess frets endlessly over Dyla having such an indecent teacher. Horrific scenarios run rampant in her mind about how her daughter will turn wild while accompanying that crude mercenary of a tutor. She cannot comprehend what that lowly commoner can possibly teach. She is completely determined to save her daughter from this disaster, but the second she sees Dyla, all her massive worries instantly vanish for the moment. The cold mother fully expects her daughter to run directly into her arms and smile as always. However, when she opens her eyes, she gets a total shock, finding Dyla standing there curtsying like an absolute lady. The Duchess is completely stunned, but Dyla uses this opportunity to softly mention she has a piano lesson starting right after this. The Duchess is highly impressed, but Dyla continues detailing her general studies. The Duchess notes that her etiquette lessons have not even officially started yet, receiving a response dripping with perfect Azaline-style grace and modesty. The Duchess is astonished but lets her go. On her way, a maid drops several items, but Dyla kindly asks about her well-being, advising her to not overstrain herself. This flawless act leaves both the maid and the Duchess utterly shocked. Meanwhile, at the Ebelstein Noble District, several young ladies show great concern for Azeline since she seemed unusually downcast during their last gathering. Azeline is surprised, but reassures them that her deep worries are completely resolved now. Making her feel much better, Alenti of House Belmierd then mentions a curious rumor that Azeline actually traveled outside the noble district to save some commoner. Azeline admits that Diella desperately needed a talented magic tutor, so she went out to find one. Hearing this, Alenti gets incredibly curious. The Lady of Duplain went to find him herself, while Denise of House Veltes probes. In response, Esselin shares how Diella has transformed into a remarkably proper young lady. She is so different now that she is barely recognizable, even showing 4-star talent. Her posture is flawless. Hearing this, Denise silently takes note of every single detail. She keeps digging, trying to find out more about this mysterious new magic tutor. Esselin admits he is a commoner, but his sheer brilliance made him worth the effort. In fact, she had to travel all the way to the mercenary docks just to hire him. The noble girls are completely stunned to learn that her master is just a mercenary. Alenti remembers how the family chef fled in tears after dealing with Diella's tantrums. Now she can barely believe this tutor managed to civilize such an untamable brat. He didn't just fix her attitude, he actually helped her manifest real magic. Curious, she asks for the teacher's name, eager to know this rising talent. She is certain a wizard this gifted will soon make waves across the entire kingdom. Smiling proudly, Esselin reveals his name, Derek. Meanwhile, Diella chats with her mother. She explains how Derek taught her proper etiquette. The Duchess praises her dedication. But Diella insists that Derek guided her through the most difficult lessons. She admits she couldn't have done it alone. The Duchess keeps a polite smile. Underneath, she is absolutely livid. That commoner's name is starting to appear everywhere. Unwilling to let this slide, she resolves to dig up some dirt on him. Instead, the maids, the gardener, and the butler all praise Diella's new attitude. They credit Derek entirely, leaving the frustrated Duchess wanting to scream in rage. Later that night, Derek pushes himself to practice 3-star spells. The drain is immense, leaving him exhausted. Just then, Rager strolls over. He sits down, mentioning he wants to discuss Diella's progress under Derek's care. Seeing the advanced book, Rager is shocked when Derek says the Duke lent it. Derek freely admits the magic is currently too advanced, but he wants to learn. Rager remembers the Duke praising Derek as a true mage and feels deeply impressed. Yet, as the conversation shifts back to Diella, Rager gets incredibly awkward. He nervously asks what kinds of things teenage girls are into lately. He even wonders if she might want an embroidered doll matching her likeness. Remembering a creepy, cursed doll from before, Derek instantly shuts down the idea. Rager quickly backtracks, stammering that it probably wasn't a good idea anyway. As they walk back, Rager quietly thanks Derek for improving the household's atmosphere. Even the hard-to-read Duke seems quite pleased with how things are going lately. This change has made Rager realize that even difficult people can grow. Inspired by Diella's progress, he decides it is time to work on himself too. Filled with respect, Rager offers Derek his most sincere and heartfelt gratitude. Rager also notices how different Diella's spellcasting is, comparing her magic to drawing a picture. Derek is impressed by this, explaining that she uses the wild school of magic, which relies purely on instinct. Once she gets on the right track, she won't need any more teaching. At that stage, too much structured guidance would only hold her back. Rager smiles, knowing she will shine when the right moment comes. 2 months pass. Her personal maid gently places a fresh flower into her neatly kept hair. Breathing in the sweet scent, Diella reflects on how quickly spring is passing by. She finally casts 1-star magic easily now, getting way closer to the estate servants. And it is all thanks to Derek. Her maid smiles, linking this happiness straight to those magic lessons with Diella, so she carefully tucks a few beautiful flowers into her hair. Diella even begs for one leftover blossom so she can hand it to Derek herself. But later, that flower lies forgotten on the floor when devastating news hits her hard. Derek repeats his quiet verdict: there is absolutely nothing left for him to teach her. That is just how the seasons work. Just as winter ends, spring cannot last forever. Later on, Derek explains the cold hard truth directly to the Duke. Diella belongs to the wild, so keeping her caged under formal teaching will only break her wings. Hearing this, the Duke realizes there is no longer any reason for Derek to stay. But the grim Duke is far from happy about letting him leave like this. He admits that so many things have changed here, all thanks to Derek's presence. And most of all, his stubborn daughter has finally found the strength to grow. He knows he has been a pretty terrible father, swallowed up by his heavy territory duties. Still, he feels relieved now. Asked about his departure, Derek mentions that Iceland is returning to Abelstein soon, so he will just hitch a ride on her carriage. He promises to return every single borrowed spell book before he goes, planning to leave the library key with the head butler, but the Duke stops him. Keep the books, the Duke tells him, but return that key directly to me. With nothing left to discuss, Derek bows politely and exits the tense, stuffy room. On his way out, Diella corners him, absolutely furious that he is leaving so suddenly. He tries to explain his reasons, but she desperately pleads with him to stay. Stepping closer, he tells her he must go back to his tough mercenary life. But while he trains, she needs to keep sharpening her own skills back home. Soon, she will head to Abelstein for her grand debutante, where they can meet again. If he grows a bit stronger by then, he promises to teach her something brand new. Diella finds his calm logic pretty annoying since she has absolutely no comeback. That night, things take a dark turn as Diella dreams of her deepest insecurities. Fearing she lacks talent and will bring shame to the Duplain name, she wakes up, gasping for air, only to realize it was nothing but a terrible nightmare. Hearing her loud scream, a worried maid rushes in to check on her. For a second, Diella wonders if she should just abuse this servant like before, using it as an excuse to force Derek to stay, but guilt quickly washes over her and she softly claims she is fine. The next morning arrives. Iceland prepares to leave for Abelstein, letting Derek hitch a ride with her. She urges him to say his farewells quickly before they set off. Derek turns to Valerius and Rieg, who deeply appreciate his hard work here. They offer their help whenever he needs it. Then Derek looks at Diella. The young lady does not appreciate his staring. She refuses to cry now. She is not some weak kid anymore. Derek quietly says it was an honor. He cannot proudly call himself her true master, but Diella cuts him off. She promises to proudly tell the entire world that Derek was her teacher. That way, he will never be able to live a quiet life again. She stares at him, softly telling him to take good care of himself. Declaring she is an adult who can handle things alone, Derek just smiles. He once proudly declared he could take care of himself, but Katrina had hugged him lovingly, giving him some golden advice. Now Derek repeats those exact same words to Diella, telling her she does not need to grow up so fast. Diella starts tearing up, yet she still sends him off with a happy smile. He bows, promising to meet her in Abelstein. Soon, he is back there. Inside the commercial district, he watches ruffians beating down some poor guy. Leading the pack is Pauline, who happily grins and welcomes her partner home. The tavern boss welcomes Derek back, offering him a nice drink on the house. Pauline is still pretty salty that he got to mingle with fancy noble girls. She immediately starts jabbing at him, mocking his pale skin and teaching job. Even his quiet, short responses only seem to annoy her more when she asks. The boss tries to cool her down by sliding her a drink, but she openly admits she is angry that Derek left her behind for so long. The boss laughs, assuming the pay was great, but Derek calmly slides a book across the table, noting he gained something far more important than mere money. At first, they both assume it is just another ordinary 2-star spell book. It is valuable, sure, but nothing to lose their minds over. Then he casually reveals it is a 3-star spell book. The boss instantly scolds him, accusing him of theft. Meanwhile, Pauline is looking at a massive payday. Her eyes completely light up at the thought of selling it for insane money. Derek simply explains the Grand Duke gave it to him, but Pauline scoffs. She does not believe a single word of it. Later, Derek asks about work. He mentions his fighting skills might have gotten a little bit rusty lately. The boss completely rejects that. According to him, that is physically impossible. He still starts sorting through the stack of open jobs they have available. Derek spots a solid request and accepts it on the spot. The next morning, he and Pauline head out into the wilderness together. Together, they easily tear through a massive ogre and a swarm of spiders. By nightfall, Pauline is completely exhausted and fast asleep. Derek, however, stays up. He spends the hours practicing his new high-tier magic under the stars. Even for a natural genius, controlling these spells proves to be brutal. After a few failed attempts, he ends up nursing a minor injury. Mastered 2-star spells are one thing, but 3-star is completely different. That boundary feels almost impossible to break through right now. Seasons slowly drift by until the biting winter cold finally sets in. Returning from their latest hunt, Pauline shivers and complains about the frost. Even the boss is impressed they are taking on contracts in this weather. He is especially happy when they toss their latest trophy onto his counter. The severed head of a harpy proves their success. As Derek nods, he mentions, "A unique new job, supposedly the pay is great and it is easy. There is just one catch. Count Belmierd is currently looking for a commoner. To participate in a magic duel, to put it bluntly, they need a willing, magical punching bag." Naturally, Derek accepts because he likes money. He finds himself standing inside the massive arena grounds. Soon, Alentia arrives, with a bald old man demanding to know where her opponent is. The old man explains they hired a commoner to help her practice. But Alentia, she absolutely hates sparring with commoners. Too bad for her, the master insists this is mandatory training. She finally agrees, mostly because she figures it will be incredibly easy. In her mind, he is just a human punching bag to beat on. The master warns her that her opponent can use level 1 magic. But Alentia is confident since she is almost at the 2nd star. Meanwhile, Derek prepares for the fight as the young noblewoman approaches. She is not there to be polite, she just wants to trash talk. Derek introduces himself politely, and she gives a cold reply. His name actually rings a bell, though she cannot quite place it. The master sends them to the arena, but she is still distracted. She simply cannot get over how incredibly young this Derek kid actually looks. Standing across from him, Alentia asks if he even knows basic duel etiquette. She demands that he fight with everything he has got right from the start. She still hates fighting a commoner and wants to end this quickly. But then, Derek throws her off with a sudden, bizarre question. He asks what level of resistance she wants from him. He calmly notes that knowing her limits helps him train her better. Hearing this, her master immediately shakes his head in pure disbelief. Alentia just takes it as an insult and sneers at him. She orders him to attack with everything, and Derek simply nods. To her, he is just a lowly peasant, but get ready, because things are about to get wild. Alentia starts chanting immediately, eager to put him in his place. She is determined to teach this commoner brat a painful lesson. She fires a gust of wind magic, but Derek barely even moves. He dodges it with ease, leaving her completely baffled. When he calmly asks for her next move, she snaps. She hurriedly chants again, creating several glowing mana arrows in the air. She fires them, but Derek casually counters with a single magic arrow. His shot shatters all of hers instantly, landing right at her feet. She is stunned by his insane control over a basic spell. Even the master sits up, realizing this kid is something special. Alentia admits she underestimated him and decides to get serious. She pivots instantly, summoning scorching fire magic this time. Derek immediately notices that she has changed her entire approach. She is trying to blast the entire platform to pieces instead. Fire arrows rain down from above, leaving Derek with no room to run. He quickly conjures a magic barrier right before the flames strike. Once the smoke clears, Derek stands there without a single scratch. But Alentia refuses to give him even a moment to breathe. She instantly hurls a massive ice spear straight at his chest. Derek does not even try to dodge, he just calmly flicks his fingers. Suddenly, a blinding flash of white light completely floods the entire arena. Squinting through the glare, Alentia desperately tries to locate her opponent. Instead, desperately trying to pinpoint his location, but a second later an arrow grazes right past her face. Even without hearing a thing, she manages to see Derek calmly walking forward with glowing arrows forming in his hands. It is then she finally realizes what he did. Derek cast a quiet confusion spell that dampens all sound nearby. Once she realizes that Derek actually avoided attacking her. While she was dazed, her anger flares up even more. She blocks the arrows, but then notices him rushing straight at her. Alent finally smirks. She focuses on his hand, planning her next move. She wants to cast first and end the match immediately, but Derek suddenly stomps his foot. Intense lightning crackles out and spreads rapidly. Across the ground toward Alent, she tries to block but totally slips. She falls, her master watches in surprise as he analyzes Derek's movements and control despite him being a wild, self-taught mage. Alent slowly stands. She admits that Derek is actually pretty intriguing. She confesses she initially underestimated him, but thanks him for a great lesson. Then, she immediately copies his exact same technique to strike back. Derek does not budge. He can easily maneuver the electricity around his body. Alent shrieks as her own magic turns against her. It is absolute chaos. Derek finally takes this golden chance to end the duel for real. He is about to land the final blow when the old master rings the bell. The duel is over. Derek smoothly lands on his feet and bows politely. While Alent bits her lip in frustration, later on she actually compliments him. Derek returns the sentiment, but she just laughs it off, saying he has mastered flattery too. When she asks about his skill, Derek simply shrugs. A mercenary has to do whatever it takes to survive. Alent likes hard workers, but warns him her bald master might get annoyed if he stands out too much. Still, she thanks him again for the lesson. Since she has an upcoming match she wants to win, Derek reassures her. With her skills, she has nothing to worry about, but then she reveals her opponent is Iselin. Talk about a plot twist, Derek freezes. She eventually lets him leave, but his name keeps bugging her. Then it clicks, she remembers Iselin mentioning him before. Alent bolts after Derek, grabbing him like a long-lost love. But this is not romantic. The reason is actually much simpler. Derek is the one who trained Diella, dragging him to her villa. She announces she is willing to do anything to beat Iselin. Alent explains that Iselin has not even hit the 2-star rank yet. But since she cannot surpass her, she desperately needs this magic victory. Derek casually calls it a competitive streak, but the truth is actually far messier. Alent opens up about her deepest, ugliest flaws. She was so desperate to beat Iselin that she acted incredibly petty. Eaten up by jealousy and desperation, her schemes never really worked out. No matter how much she trash-talked Iselin, the girl just kindly embraced her. When Derek asks why she is sharing all of this, Alent explains it is the only way to prove her absolute, desperate resolve. Laying bare her deep shame, she admits there is something she must ask him. With Derek's permission, she brings up his time staying at Duplain Manor. He saw their magic firsthand, and now she wants to compare herself to Iselin. She wants to beat her, but Derek just offers a standard textbook answer. He says Iselin has talent, but anyone can improve with enough hard work. But one look, his eyes lock onto hers, seeing a desperate intensity. She is not seeking cheap comfort or some empty, polite praise. Desperation drives her to beg a lowly mercenary for actual, honest answers. So Derek drops the act and tells her the brutal truth: she can never win. Alent's lips tremble, still she stays resolute. She absolutely must win. Even if it seems impossible, before a shocked Derek can respond, she presses on. She points out that he somehow turned the hopeless Diella into a proper mage. If he did that, he can definitely help her bring down Iselin. Her sheer determination moves him, and he admits there is one extreme way. Understand first. Thinking he finally relented, Alent calmly nods. She calmly tells him to speak. Derek begins with the training methods he used. He trained Diella with techniques that were honestly far from noble or kind. The dark details do not matter, she will do whatever it takes. To win, she needs that power. Then Derek quietly reminds her that he is a mercenary. Alent says she already expects the vicious gossip, but she does not care. She is dead serious about crushing the shining star of the entire empire. Failure is not an option. Without this victory, everything is a dream. She demands that he stop questioning her resolve over such petty social gossip. After listening to her passionate outburst, Derek just gives her a calm correction. He only brought up being a mercenary because he expects to get paid. Alent suddenly freezes up, her entire face flushing a deep, embarrassed red. Recovering quickly, she stammers that she will pay whatever price he demands. While she nervously fans herself, complaining about the heat, Derek steels himself. Brutal, if he teaches her, it will be a truly harsh training. A match for her terrifying resolve.